Your ninth incarnation was destroyed by the tribulation. Since it has come, why continue to run from it? The stunningly beautiful woman, always cold in demeanor, lowered her gaze and remained silent. That incarnation perished because of him. No matter how you hide, you'll have to face it eventually. The moment you saved that little girl Zhou all those years ago, I knew your mind had been shaken. Because of the ninth incarnation, the elder sighed inwardly. Floating midair, he lifted his gaze toward the void. Remember, you are the holy maiden Mu Bingmei of Kungsu, not some willow eyebrows who bore a child with a common cultivator on the vermilion bird star. You carry the mission of restoring the Kungsu realm, and the duty of resisting the people of the outer realm. The time when the inner and outer realms will be connected is not far off. He is not a common cultivator. Before the elder could finish, the cold woman lifted her face, so breathtakingly beautiful it could move the hearts of all, and spoke calmly. You are still this deluded? The elder said, frowning. I'm simply telling you, he is not a common cultivator. Her voice was steady, but her tone carried unmistakable weight. Fine. Even if he isn't a common cultivator, even if he somehow projected his mind here, even if his cultivation eventually reaches the peak of the second step, so what? The elder's tone brimmed with disdain. In the end, he is still just a cultivator. What the elder didn't know was that this so-called common cultivator was someone the Vermilion Bird Sacred Sect had mobilized its entire might to protect, an awakened one. He didn't know this cultivator possessed the bloodline of the ancient gods, not inherited, but reconstituted through the ancient god art using the memories of 2C after Wang Lin's body collapsed. That reformed body was the very source of that bloodline. He also didn't know that this ordinary cultivator possessed the heaven-defying. You were once just a cultivator too, the stunning woman said, giving the elder a calm glance. The elder forced a bitter smile, but found himself at a loss for words. Rest assured, the responsibilities and obligations of the Kungsu Holy Maiden, I will not shirk. But as for my personal matters, you have no right to interfere. My matters with him are not for anyone else to meddle in. Her voice was firm, brooking no compromise. The elder sighed again and chose not to pursue the topic. Instead, he gazed skyward and said, An old friend's body has been taken over. I must go. Will you come with me? The woman was silent for a moment. A flicker of complexity passed through her eyes, but ultimately, she nodded resolutely. I'll go. In the seventh layer of the Immortal Emperor's cave mansion, all the magma had gathered into the form of a fire dragon. Its massive head lifted and gazed down at the people below, an invisible pressure instantly surging outward. Amid this pressure, twin jets of searing heat spewed from its nostrils. Its two enormous crimson horns radiated intense heat, and its python-like body coiled around the lower level, emanating an overwhelming aura of dominance. Its furious gaze swept across the crowd below, and the first person the fire dragon fixed its eyes on was Wang Lin. From his frail body, it sensed something familiar, fire elemental energy. Wang Lin trembled under the dragon's gaze, but did not bow. Instead, he slowly stepped back. After a brief moment, the dragon turned its attention away from him and locked onto Void Master, the ancient demon, and the ancient demon Beiluo. With a roar, its head plunged down, aiming to devour the three. Wang Lin let out a quiet breath and immediately retreated. As his divine sense extended, he saw the entire seventh layer erupt into a sea of flames as the fire dragon rampaged. Ancient demon Beiluo's eyes flashed. Instead of fleeing, he turned around, formed a hand seal, and released a surge of demonic aura. It transformed into a massive green demon head and lunged at the ancient demon behind him. Voidmaster also cast a hand seal, summoning a sandstorm that swirled around him and formed a 10-jong-high sand barrier to block the flames. But his current cultivation was not enough to hold it back. The moment the sandstorm touched the fire, it crackled and began to crumble rapidly. Ancient demon Tajia's expression remained cold, his eyes gleaming with bloodlust. He stepped forward, let out a hoarse laugh, and sneered. Why run now? A mere fire dragon spirit that once guarded this cave dares to turn on its master. As he spoke, his right hand formed a seal and pointed upward. He growled, Let me show you one of Immortal Emperor Qinglin's divine techniques, demonic heaven fire. At his words, a wave of black, demonic flame erupted from his location. It swept outward with a roar, releasing suffocating heat that immediately engulfed the seventh layer. The entire sky was engulfed by demonic flames, which spread rapidly across the heavens. In the blink of an eye, the sky turned completely black, consumed by the flames of the demon. The intense heat radiating from the flames was laced with demonic aura, capable not only of incinerating everything in its path, but also corrupting the body and spirit, causing the primordial spirit to collapse. In an instant, the sky above was covered by these demonic flames. The fire dragon roared, and flames exploded from its body as it tried to fight against the demonic fire in the sky. With a single movement, the earth beneath trembled violently. The massive body of the fire dragon surged toward the ancient demon. A cold smile appeared on the corner of the ancient demon's lips. He extended his right hand toward the sky and pointed at the roaring fire dragon. In that instant, the demonic flames in the sky screamed downward, like a shower of fire meteors, crashing down upon the fire dragon. This scene was earth-shattering. The demonic flames fell on the fire dragon in an instant. As the flames continued to pour down, the entire body of the fire dragon was soon enveloped, and it appeared as though the fire dragon was entirely consumed by demonic aura. Roars of fury and agonizing cries echoed as the fire dragon struggled and collided with the flames. Yet, as it approached the ancient demon's hand pressed forward. A wave of invisible force spread out, and when the fire dragon was only 10 paces away, it was suddenly seized by this invisible force. No matter how the fire dragon struggled and roared, it could not break free. Seeing this, the ancient demon Beiluo inhaled sharply in shock. You've already mastered Qinglin's divine techniques and can wield the invisible power within his body, Beiluo exclaimed, his eyes filled with astonishment. He realized immediately that this meant the ancient demon, Taijia, had completely taken over Qinglin's body, achieving the union of body and mind. Without hesitation, the ancient demon Beiluo, feeling bitter in his heart, gave up any plans for attack and began to retreat. He knew that with his strength, even if he gathered everyone in this cave, they could not change the fact that Qinglin's body had already been seized. In the past, I spared no effort and battled Qinglin within this body for countless years, all for his divine consciousness, memories, cultivation, and most importantly, this body. The ancient demon laughed wildly as he stepped forward, his hand still gripping the fire dragon. Ancient demon, you and I were great enemies in the past, but now, before me, you are like an ant. Once I completely fuse with Qinglin's body, I will possess this body, crafted by Qinglin over countless years, that can break all rules. There will be no place in this world that can stop me. With this body, I will trace the footsteps of the ancient ancestors and reach the true 9-star realm of my clan. Once I reach the 9-star realm, I, ancient demon Taijia, will enter the ancient ancestral ruins and obtain the true power of primordial reversion. The sound of the ancient demon Taijia's wild laughter echoed as he walked forward. The fire dragon, struggling, was forced to retreat. With a single wave, Taijia hurled the fire dragon into the air. Qinglin's divine technique, demonic flame burning the heavens and boiling the sea. Taijia's eyes blazed with demonic flames. In an instant, the 7th layer of the earth was filled with dense demonic energy. The air grew thick, as if solidifying into a tangible force. Within moments, this demonic energy transformed into a vast demonic sea. The waves churned violently, and Wang Lin, who was inside the sea, looked on in shock. It wasn't just him. Even the Void Master, who was trapped within the demonic sea, couldn't escape. Even Beiluo, the ancient demon, was not spared. In the distance, the fire dragon continued to roar within the demonic sea, but even it was shocked. With the ancient demon Taijia's command, the sea of demonic energy began to boil. As the waves surged, countless bubbles rose to the surface, radiating unbearable heat. This technique, burning the heavens and boiling the sea, was meant to vaporize and collapse the entire ocean, leaving no chance for those trapped within to resist. As Wang Lin came into contact with the ancient demon Taijia, he realized that this being had grown stronger over time. This divine technique, which would have been nearly impossible to use on the 9th layer, was now effortlessly wielded by Taejia. It was as if he had fully unlocked the divine techniques of the immortal Emperor Qinglin. Thinking of Qinglin's divine techniques, Wang Lin felt a chill run down his spine. But there was no time to dwell on this. The sea of demonic energy was rapidly engulfing him, and the waves roiled, trapping him in its depths. The demonic flames in the sky sank lower, further compressing the space. As the sea of demonic energy grew, it seemed to trap everything within, slowly cooking and burning them alive. Just as the situation seemed dire, the Void Master, with a bitter smile on his face, slapped his forehead. His body immediately exploded with a loud bang. In the instant of his explosion, a furious shockwave erupted, pushing everything around him, including the demonic sea. The magic flames in the sky were pushed back, and a vortex formed within the sea. As his body self-destructed, the Void Master's primordial spirit surged out. As its arms stretched open, immediately outside the demon spirit land where the immortal Emperor's cave mansion was located, within the endless starry sky, the true spirit of Vermilion Bird and the members of the Vermilion Bird sacred sect were present. In an instant, 5 stars in the starry sky emitted an indescribable radiance. Under the illumination of this light, it spread throughout the entire sky. No matter where one was, as long as they were within the Alliance star domain, they could clearly see that 5 stars had suddenly appeared in the sky. Whether it was day or night, the light emitted by these 5 stars could not be obstructed. At this moment, one of the 5 stars suddenly increased in brightness dramatically, immediately overshadowing the other 4. And at the moment when its light reached its peak, the star seemed to fall from the sky, heading straight towards the void. In the starry sky, the elderly figure of the Kungsu realm and the stunning woman, who were both traveling, suddenly looked up at the distant sky. The elderly man's expression remained unchanged as he muttered, "Someone has experienced the first decay of heaven and man." The brightest of the 5 stars fell, its speed far exceeding the limits of any cultivator, closing in on the true spirit of Vermilion Bird in an instant. A thunderous sound echoed through the sky, and the star's brilliance spread, vanishing into the dust beneath. Piercing through the dust, it entered the demon spirit land, causing the demonic aura in the land to swirl. This starlight, with a mighty boom, pierced through the earth, heading directly towards the immortal Emperor's cave mansion. The sound of explosions reverberated as it passed through 6 layers, directly reaching the 7th layer. There, amidst the world of burning skies and boiling seas, it landed upon the primordial spirit of Void Master. In that instant, Void Master's cultivation surged wildly, but his face contorted in pain as he screamed in agony. Borrowing the power of the first decay of heaven and man, Void Master surged forward, breaking through the demonic flames in the sky and charging ahead. His primordial spirit was rapidly dissipating under the starlight. For cultivators in the shattered nirvana stage, the first decay of heaven and man was just the beginning. Ancient demon Taejia, who had intended to grab Void Master from afar, flickered his eyes and lowered his arm. Experiencing the first decay of heaven and man while severely injured. If this person survives, he might become one of my robed demons. At this moment, Bei Luo, Wang Lin, and the Flame Dragon, trapped in the demonic sea, had reached the brink of life and death. The immortal Emperor's divine arts, combined with the ancient demon's demonic aura, had made the power of the burning sky and boiling sea technique reach a terrifying level. The seawater receded on a large scale, with the temperature rising even higher. Even with Wang Lin's Vermilion Bird and ancient god physique, he felt intense pain from the heat. No matter how hard he struggled, he couldn't escape from this sea. The demonic flames in the sky had all fallen onto the sea surface, immediately pushing the burning sky and boiling sea technique to its peak. Wang Lin's eyes showed anxiety as waves of intense heat continued to assault his body, making him feel as if he was being cooked alive. His physical body grew weak, and in this dire moment, a bitter expression appeared in his eyes. Throughout his life, he rarely made mistakes, but this time, he had to admit he had miscalculated. If he had left with Hu Wan and Wang Wei earlier, he might not have fallen into this crisis. But even then, the three of them would still have been unable to escape. Eventually, they would have been caught, and at that time, they would still have to face the terrifying ancient demon Taijia. Whether front or back, the outcome was the same. Wang Lin had faced many dangers in his life, whether against the blood ancestor during the Yao family's pursuit, or in the ancient god ruins when he faced the ancient gods. Time and again, he had never yielded. This time, though, he wished to resist, yet reality was cruel. Still, this didn't cause Wang Lin's Dao heart to collapse. He couldn't give up. His eyes gleamed with determination. He still had heaven-defying power. He still had his primordial force. At this moment, the demonic power had almost completely dissipated, leaving only endless demonic flames that spread around, continuously burning, intending to incinerate all living beings within it. The flame dragon, too, appeared weak, its body gradually shrinking. Even it could not endure the power here. Bei Luo, surrounded by demonic aura, was in no better state, but it was all in vain. The manic laughter of the ancient demon echoed. He stared at the demonic flames, where a small figure was sitting cross-legged on his shoulder. This figure was the primordial spirit of the black-clad man, now shrunk and seated. Around the primordial spirit of the black-clad man, a flame dragon coiled, and the black-clad man stared greedily at the flame dragon in the demonic flames. This flame spirit dragon was refined by Qing Lin in the past. It is completely loyal to Qing Lin. With its intelligence, it can naturally tell that this demon is not Qing Lin. Luo Ho, since you are a disciple of the Palm Sovereign, this flame dragon shall be yours to devour. Taijia's voice was calm as he grabbed the black-clad man's primordial spirit from his shoulder and flung it forward. Immediately, this person's primordial spirit transformed into a flame dragon, howling as it surged out of the demonic flames, filled with intense greed, heading straight for the weakened fire dragon. Thank you, Lord Ancient Demon. The primordial spirit of the black-clad figure conveyed an ecstatic divine thought. With a rush, he was about to reach the fire dragon when, in that instant, the fire dragon's massive head suddenly lifted, revealing a defiant pride in its eyes. A mighty dragon roar echoed, producing sonic booms that reverberated through the demonic flames, causing them to momentarily halt. The primordial spirit, transformed flame dragon of the black-clad figure retreated slightly, but the greed in its eyes only grew stronger. There was no hurry. Under the ancient demon Taijia's divine technique, he was certain the fire dragon could not withstand much longer. With a greedy gaze, the black-clad figure's primordial spirit glanced once more at the struggling Wang Lin, and an eerie gleam appeared in its eyes. And his vermilion bird, that shall be mine as well. But at that very moment, something occurred that astonished the primordial spirit of the black-clad figure. The fire dragon suddenly moved, roaring as it shifted its body. Its massive form rapidly shrank, and in the blink of an eye, it transformed into a figure of 10 zhang, about 33 feet, charging directly towards Wang Lin. In its dragon eyes, there was a flash of deadly determination. Rather than perish, it would not let itself be consumed. If it must die, it would rather choose this person. After all, in this person, it could still sense a trace of familiarity. This scene was beyond the expectations of the black-clad figure's primordial spirit. Before it could react, the fire dragon had already shot out with such speed that it almost reached Wang Lin in the blink of an eye. As Wang Lin opened his eyes in a daze, the fire dragon let out a final roar before crashing into Wang Lin's forehead. The endless power of flames surged into his primordial spirit, and in that instant, the vermilion bird totem on his body, which had been languishing, immediately awakened as though infused with new strength, transforming and emitting the sound of the vermilion bird. Though the fire elemental energy contained in the fire spirit dragon was different from the vermilion flame, at the core, both were of the fire element of heaven and earth. Thus, as the fire dragon surged into Wang Lin's forehead, the fire elemental energy within him wildly increased. Not only that, but under the fusion of these two distinct flames, a strange transformation occurred. It was as though a parched land had welcomed the refreshing rain, or a dying candle had been refueled with oil. Wang Lin's body trembled, and beads of sweat poured from his forehead as if a force within him was about to explode. He suddenly stood up, and with one step, he found the strength to move out of the demonic flames. His eyes blazed with a storm of fire, forming a fiery vortex that roared upwards into the sky. Within this storm, the vermilion bird circled, and a phantom of the fire dragon spread, causing the storm to reach its peak in an instant, drawing in the surrounding demonic flames, consuming them. As the storm grew wilder, it formed a massive vortex, exuding terrifying suction. This scene unfolded in the blink of an eye. Even the ancient demon Tagia was momentarily stunned. The primordial spirit of the black-clad figure revealed disbelief in its eyes, and at that moment, all thoughts of devouring were gone. It hurriedly retreated, but the vortex was too close. As it tried to pull away, it was immediately sucked back by the vortex. The ancient demon frowned and raised his right hand to grasp the black-clad figure's primordial spirit. Just as he was about to pull it back, however, the ancient demon Beluo's eyes flashed with a demonic gleam. Having already despaired, Beluo had not expected this. After Wang Lin absorbed the fire dragon, a fire mutation appeared in his body. He could see clearly that within the vortex storm, a white fire seed was rapidly gathering inside Wang Lin's body. Primordial fire seed. At the sight of this, even Beluo, with his identity as an ancient demon, couldn't help but gasp. His previously hopeless mindset suddenly had a chance to struggle free. It's only a step away. This person can fully condense the fire seed. Once the fire seed condenses, all the fire in the world will be under his control. Although the demonic flames have a will, the soul seizing in Tagia's case is not yet perfect, there is still a chance. In an instant, countless thoughts circled in Beluo's mind. Just as the ancient demon Tagia was about to seize the black-clad figure's primordial spirit, Beluo gritted his teeth, struggling as his right eye's 7 demonic stars spun rapidly. In the blink of an eye, one of them exploded. Ancient demon star explosion. The explosion of one demon star instantly sent a great force into Beluo's body, allowing him to break free. While he could not escape the demonic flames nor charge out, he could now use his divine techniques. His right eye flashed again, and another demon star exploded with a deafening boom. The 2 exploding stars caused Beluo's body to suddenly expand. With one step, he arrived in front of the black-clad figure, and as he lunged forward, he transformed into a whirlpool of demonic energy. The force of his attack collided with the air-seizing power of Tagia's hand. Startled, the black-clad man's primordial spirit was about to flee again, but suddenly, from the vortex where Wang Lin was, his right hand shot out and grabbed the black-clad man's primordial spirit. As the black-clad man tried to resist, endless flames roared out from Wang Lin's right hand, enveloping the black-clad man's primordial spirit tightly. With a sharp pull from Wang Lin, the black-clad man's primordial spirit was immediately drawn into the vortex. Inside the vortex, Wang Lin's eyes gleamed with murderous intent. Without saying a word, he swallowed the black-clad man's primordial spirit in one gulp. The moment Wang Lin swallowed the primordial spirit, a loud bang echoed from within his body. After absorbing the fire dragon and devouring the black-clad man's flame dragon, merging with the vermilion bird, the 3 mighty flames of the world caused Wang Lin's fire elemental energy to reach unprecedented heights. As the fire elemental energy grew more intense and the temperature soared, a flame seed, no larger than a fingernail, was formed in his dantian. As soon as the flame seed appeared, all the demonic flames in the 7th layer of the immortal emperor's cave suddenly paused and swiftly surged toward the vortex where Wang Lin was. The speed was so fast that in an instant, they were all absorbed into the vortex. The demonic flames, fire dragon, and flame dragon, with vermilion bird at the core, merged into a fire mutation, creating the flame seed. But what truly mattered wasn't the fusion of these flames, nor the creation of the seed. It was that, after absorbing such a vast amount of flames, Wang Lin's vermilion bird showed signs of a second awakening. In the vermilion bird sacred sect, the number of awakenings determined the highest cultivation of a person's life. It was also the key to becoming the vermilion sacred emperor. Throughout the long history of the vermilion bird sacred sect, If all the marked ones only awakened once, they would engage in a struggle to become the emperor, with the loser becoming an elder. However, if one person achieved 2 awakenings, no contest was needed. The Vermilion Sacred Emperor would surely belong to them. As for a 3rd awakening, in the entire history of the Vermilion Bird Sacred Sect, it had never happened. At this moment, the vortex surrounding Wang Lin surged with endless force, supporting the heavens and earth. It continued to absorb energy as a fiery whirlwind, incompatible with anything, exploded from the volcano's mouth in the 7th layer. As it burst out, countless cracks appeared on the volcano, and in an instant, the volcano collapsed. Rocks fell, and the entire volcano was destroyed. With the collapse, the massive firestorm shot straight into the sky, crashing against the upper limits, causing intense heat to slam between the 7th and 6th layers. The 2 layers were immediately connected with a thunderous crash. The scenery of the 6th layer appeared before their eyes. The woman in pink and the rustic beauty, who were in the great hall of the 6th layer, immediately felt the earth shake. In horror, they saw the ground of the 6th layer collapse and crumble downward. The buildings disintegrated, and countless restrictions shattered. It was as if the world was ending. But the firestorm didn't stop. It kept pushing forward, and in the blink of an eye, it broke through the 5th layer, causing it to collapse with a loud bang. As the debris fell, Wang Wei and Hu Wan, both awakened, did not hesitate. They followed the flames and rushed out. With each successive strike, the firestorm continued to tear through the layers. After breaking the 5th layer, it stormed through the 4th layer. The 4th layer collapsed. Situnin stared at everything in shock, gasping in disbelief. Without hesitation, he followed the firestorm. The 3rd layer collapsed. The 2nd layer collapsed. Finally, on the 1st layer of the Immortal Emperor's cave, the flames surged to the heavens, only to stop at last. But instead of dissipating, the flames rapidly contracted inward, condensing. The endless firestorm suddenly vanished, merging into the body of a single figure deep within. Wang Lin's eyes were void of flames, but an invisible fire radiated from his body. If one looked closely, they would see that his surroundings seemed to distort, making it impossible for any gaze to penetrate. His hair had completely changed, now a mass of white, flowing wildly. Wang Lin exhaled deeply and clenched his fist. Behind him, a vermilion bird materialized, but this time, it was no longer crimson, it was white. This white was like snow, but anyone who saw this vermilion bird would instantly feel an unimaginable, terrifying heat emanating from it. The white vermilion bird circled Wang Lin's body, exuding an aura of pride, as if all living beings in the world were unworthy of standing before it, let alone meeting its gaze. As it circled, the vermilion bird released a mighty cry that seemed to penetrate heaven and earth. Vermilion bird, 2nd awakening. At this instant, the entire world trembled. In a corner of the collapsing 4th layer, Void Master, hidden and meditating, struggled desperately, hoping to survive the first decay of heaven and man. Once I succeed, not only will my injuries fully heal, but my cultivation will also increase exponentially, by dozens of times. At that time, killing Wang Lin will be as easy as crushing an ant. As he struggled, the voice of the vermilion bird's 2nd awakening immediately reached his ears. For a moment, Void Master stood stunned, disbelief in his eyes. While the 1st awakening was something he could accept, the 2nd awakening was something he never anticipated. He clearly knew that the 2nd awakening of the vermilion bird was worlds apart from the 1st. If the 1st awakening could ensure that the vermilion bird sacred sect would protect the individual with all their might, the 2nd awakening would drive the vermilion bird sacred sect into a frenzy. This was no longer mere protection. It meant they would spare no cost. The 1st awakening would make the cultivation alliance care, and though they would still seek to kill, it would not shake them. But now, the 2nd awakening of the vermilion bird would undoubtedly shock the cultivation alliance, even them. Moreover, Void Master was keenly aware that the time between the 2 awakenings was so short it could almost be disregarded. As he thought about it, remembering everything that had happened along the way, how Wang Lin had caused him so much trouble, he realized that this same Wang Lin had experienced a 2nd awakening. At this moment, Void Master, who was already in the first decay of heaven and man, spat out a mouthful of primordial spirit essence. His mind was immediately struck with a thunderous roar, and confusion swept over him as his primordial energy surged uncontrollably. His first decay of heaven and man now showed early signs of failure. The first decay of heaven and man was a strange and unpredictable process. Often, a single fluctuation in one's emotions could cause failure, and if failure occurred, the result would be both body and soul annihilated. At the very instant of the Vermilion Bird's second awakening, a massive Vermilion Bird true spirit emerged from the land of demonic spirits in the starry sky, releasing a loud call. In that moment, everyone around the Vermilion Bird true spirit, particularly the 6 shattered Nirvana cultivators, widened their eyes in shock. Second awakening. To think it could be a second awakening in such a short time. The hope of the Vermilion Bird sacred sect is finally here. If this person survives, our Vermilion Bird sacred sect will rise. In the deepest part of the blazing star domain, where the Vermilion Bird sacred sect resided, an ancient emperor, with eyes as old as time, suddenly emitted an unprecedented brilliance from his eyes. Second awakening, his breathing quickened. After a long pause, he struggled to rise, but ultimately failed to stand, his frail body unable to cooperate. My time is running out. To give up a bit more of the remaining time for the second awakened member is worth it, the old man sighed heavily, closing his eyes. But just as his eyes shut, an indescribable flame of power erupted from his body, causing the entire blazing star domain to shake violently. The sound of explosions echoed, as if the entire domain was about to collapse. Slowly, a primordial spirit floated up from the old man's body. This primordial spirit did not appear old. Instead, it was a middle-aged man. He looked down at his mortal body, his eyes filled with sorrow. I haven't had my primordial spirit leave my body in so long. He shook his head, taking a step forward. Immediately, a vortex appeared in the fiery sea of stars before him. Stepping into the vortex, he vanished without a trace. Meanwhile, in the Immortal Emperor's cave mansion on the 7th layer, the ancient demon Tagia watched the ascending flame vortex. For the first time, his eyes showed a serious expression. What concerned him wasn't the Vermilion Bird's awakening, but the terrifying power he sensed from the ancient god. Royal ancient god, Vermilion Bird sacred beast, to think they would fuse. But that's not the point. The real issue is that at the very moment I was about to stop him, I felt a flicker in my mind. What else does this person have? At this moment, ancient demon Beiluo, also witnessing Wang Lin's second awakening, managed to break free from the demonic flame's grip. His thoughts no longer dwelled on fighting the ancient demon, but solely focused on escaping. I must leave here and quickly return to the outer realm. I can't fight Tagia. Beiluo's heart was bitter. He had suffered tremendous losses. Half of his demon body was consumed, and he had been severely injured trying to escape the demonic flames. Now, he shot upwards, moving like lightning. Ancient demon Tagia's gaze flickered. Of all the people here, the one he couldn't let go of was this ancient demon. He no longer cared about Wang Lin and, with one step, rushed toward Beiluo. The more time passed, the more flexible he became in controlling his body. His strength grew exponentially. Now, he was moving several times faster than before and rapidly closed the distance between him and Beiluo. In a flash, he appeared next to the two women. His right hand extended like a demon's claw, heading straight for the woman in pink. The woman in the pink dress immediately turned pale, her face devoid of color. However, there was no panic in her expression. At the moment the ancient demon grabbed her, the snowflake mark on her forehead suddenly flickered. Instantly, a howling sound spread, and a snowflake vortex appeared around her body. As the ancient demon's right claw reached out, it collided with the snowstorm. With loud bangs, the claw was immediately rebuffed. The woman in pink vomited a mouthful of blood, staining the snowflakes in front of her, and her body was thrown backward. The ancient demon gave a light hum, but without hesitation, his right hand swept across with lightning speed, directly grabbing the rustic beauty by the crown of her head. With the ancient demon's cultivation and divine powers, the woman, who had just recovered and was still wounded, had no ability to resist. After being captured by the ancient demon Beiluo, A surge of demonic energy instantly sealed her meridians. At this moment, the ancient demon Tagia stepped forward. Beluo, without thinking further, grabbed the rustic beauty and with his eyes flashing with demonic light, retreated. His left hand quickly formed several seals on the woman's body, each touch embedding a trace of demonic energy within her. In almost no time, the woman trembled as her veins swelled beneath her skin, their eerie, twisted patterns forming a massive rune mark. As the ancient demon Tagia closed in, Beluo hurled the woman forward, his eyes flashing with demonic light as he shouted, "Demon spirit transformation!" Upon his command, the woman's veins exploded, and her body instantly turned into a cloud of blood mist, her physical and spiritual essence annihilated. However, in her final moments, a rune materialized, and as soon as it appeared, a pull emitted from within it, absorbing all the blood and flesh, even pulling in her shattered primordial spirit. Once everything was absorbed and no trace of her remained, the rune's demonic light flashed as it quickly flew toward the fifth layer. Having completed this, the ancient demon appeared drained, with the 4 remaining demon stars in his right eye dimming. Yet, instead of fleeing, he suddenly turned around, eyes filled with madness as he locked his gaze on the approaching ancient demon Tagia. "I'll risk it. I'll delay you as much as I can, and allow the demon spirit to escape." The demon spirit transformation was a life-saving technique of the ancient demon clan, but any ancient demon would only use it as a last resort. The major flaw of this technique was that it required a being of the opposite gender to serve as the furnace for it to succeed. Even if successful, the caster would lose most of their cultivation, retaining only a faint trace of divine consciousness. Beluo was forced into a corner and, seeing the 2 women, had no choice but to unleash this technique. Now his eyes were filled with madness, especially the demon stars in his right eye, which spun rapidly before shattering. 1, 2, 3, 4 stars crumbled in an instant. The collapse of the 4 stars caused Beluo's body to expand wildly. His eyes burned with madness as he roared, "Tagia, even if I can't kill you, I'll make sure your soul-seizing attempt fails. You brought this upon yourself." With a furious roar, Beluo suddenly lunged forward. His body swayed, splitting into 2, then 4, then 8. In the blink of an eye, the entire space was filled with Beluo's clones. They rushed toward Tagia with a series of booming sounds, as Beluo chose to self-destruct. "I'd rather die than let you succeed." The explosions echoed, and all of Beluo's clones collapsed, creating a chaotic shockwave that spread throughout the 7th layer of the Immortal Emperor's cave. The entire 7th layer collapsed in an instant. The woman in the pink dress showed a look of sorrow and anger, but there was no time for her to think. As the ancient demon attacked the ancient demon Tagia, she immediately rushed into the 6th layer. Yet, before she could get far, she felt the shockwave from behind. Meanwhile, Wang Lin was in the 1st layer of the Immortal Emperor's cave. The sound of the vermilion bird echoed behind him, and an invisible fire spread. His gaze shifted downward from the passage that connected all the layers of the Immortal Emperor's cave, as his hands moved swiftly. Numerous seals flashed and fell into the passage below, causing stones to fall from the walls. At that moment, Wang Wei and Huan rushed out from the passage. The 2 immediately understood Wang Lin's intentions, and without hesitation, they used their divine powers beside him, stamping them on the ground. The ground began to tremble, as though it was pulling the entire land of demonic spirits. A tremor similar to an earthquake spread throughout the land of demonic spirits. Situ Nen rushed out from the deep pit, cursing nonstop. "Damn it! After I get out of this hellhole, I'm going into seclusion to detoxify." Situ Nen charged forward and, upon seeing Wang Lin, immediately took a deep breath. He also understood Wang Lin's plan at once. Without hesitation, he flew into the air, unleashing his divine power towards the ground below, striking with tremendous force. The tremors of the earth grew more intense, as if the entire Immortal Emperor's cave was on the brink of collapse. At that moment, those who had entered the 2nd layer earlier were flying out, the 3 masters of Dust Path, and Reggie among them. Even the disciples of the Rustic Beauty and the Awakened clan members were in this group. Fu Qinzi was also among them. As they emerged and saw Wang Lin, they froze, their eyes filled with astonishment. They scattered in all directions. Fu Qinzi's eyes revealed a sense of realization, clearly having guessed a part of Wang Lin's plan, though he was still somewhat puzzled. After all, he had never experienced the terrifying power of the ancient demon below, nor did any of them know about the ancient demon's existence. In the instant when the tremors intensified, Wang Lin's eyes gleamed with a strange light. With a swift motion, he pointed downward while chanting a low growl. Immediately, the massive vermilion bird behind him screeched, bursting out of his body. It circled around the terrain before charging straight into the deep pit below. Endless flames immediately surrounded it, carrying a fierce impact as it shot downward, while at the same moment, Wang Wei's eyes turned bloodshot. With a gesture, he called forth a colossal surge of water, following closely behind the vermilion bird and diving into the deep pit. Hu Wan and Situ Nin did the same, utilizing their most powerful divine techniques. As the vermilion bird plunged into the deep pit, they followed, all of them rushing in together. In that instant, a wave of cold air surged from the pit, as a woman in pink robes, surrounded by countless snowflakes, struggled to break free. As the attacks fell, she spun rapidly, narrowly escaping the deadly assault. The vermilion bird landed in the deep pit that ran through the Immortal Emperor's cave. At that moment, a deafening rumble echoed throughout the cave. With the divine techniques that followed the vermilion bird, the Immortal Emperor's cave began to collapse in earnest. The booming sounds filled the air as the ground beneath them sank deeply, sealing off all exits and enveloping the area in divine energy. The rumbling sounds from below grew louder, accompanied by the roars of the ancient demon. After casting his divine technique, Wang Lin quickly made another hand gesture. Dozens of sealing barriers swiftly descended, as Hu Wan joined him in casting additional seals. The three of them moved with incredible speed, and the seals spread widely over the collapsed ground. The area was covered with dense seals, resembling a massive net. Meanwhile, within the collapsing earth below, the roars grew increasingly intense. With each echo, the earth trembled violently, as if a force was about to break free, as if someone was about to emerge from the depths and destroy all life in its path. Those cultivators unaware of the ancient demon were all stunned. Fu Qinzi sucked in a sharp breath, clearly feeling the deadly killing aura below, causing his heart to shudder. Without hesitation, he cast the few sealing techniques he knew, and the others who were capable of casting seals did the same, offering their help. The roars from below grew louder, and the tremors intensified, causing large chunks of debris buried beneath the surface to collapse. It's too late. Wang Lin gritted his teeth and, with a sudden motion, slapped his storage pouch. Immediately, Qing Shuang's body appeared before him. Without considering the reactions of Wang Wei and Hu Wan, he raised his right hand and slapped her back. This strike wasn't intended to harm Qing Shuang, but to force her blood to expel to the very limit, ensuring she didn't dissipate. As his palm landed, Qing Shuang immediately spat out a large mouthful of blood. The blood, as it spilled out, was immediately turned into a mist by Wang Lin, enveloping the entire area. With another surge of energy from his palm, more blood poured from Qing Shuang, which Wang Lin spread across the entire ground, mixing with the seals. In that moment, a thunderous roar erupted from below, followed by a storm of demonic energy surging out, shattering the debris into dust. From within this demonic energy, the ancient demon Taijia slowly ascended. However, as the demonic energy encountered the dense barriers above, it dissipated like snow melting under the sun. Strangely enough, after the ancient demon Taijia, four figures appeared. Tian Yunzi, Ling Tianho, Voidmaster, and the humanoid being who had walked out of the ancient god's skull in the immortal burial pool. This humanoid being, with its hair and beard swaying, floated beside Taijia in a surprisingly docile manner, as though Taijia were its master. Upon seeing this scene, a flash of realization struck Wang Lin's mind. He had previously seen this humanoid figure, but hadn't connected it with the ancient demon. However, upon seeing it now, a suspicion began to form in his heart.